Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins take 2 of 3 from the Kansas City Royals at Target Field. And for the first time, Dan, since the home opener, the Twins had back-to-back days of an announced attendance over 30,000.
Who can blame them? These fair weather fans, they're living it up with the Timberwolves. They're living it up with the Twins now. The weather's getting nice. This is prime Twins bandwagon fandom right now.
You know, I like to judge those people pretty harshly.
Yeah.
But to pretend as though I haven't become a Timberwolves fan over the last couple of weeks would not be accurate. So I'm learning, Dan, to extend a little bit more grace to those people who are just there for the long winning streaks when it comes to the Twins.
See, with age comes wisdom, David. So you're gleaning more. Now, I was in the woods this week, and I got to say, and I think I've actually said this about this trip before. By woods, I mean like we can hear the cars on the highway roaring by, right? So there were screech owls right when we were trying to go to bed, so we had the touch of nature, but it was great. We always do a group camping thing Memorial Day weekend, and I was following the Twins games. I actually got to listen to one while playing a board game, David, by a babbling brook with my children playing safely in it. I mean, like, this was a little slice of perfection for me, and I would argue for you.
I would have been there, Dan. I would have been on it for sure. It sounds wonderful. Bugs? Were there bugs, Dan?
Minimal bugs, though. I have to tell one story. So last summer we went up to Lake Superior. We camped at Tetagooch, which I grew up camping at all the time because there were no bugs. But last summer was particularly bad for bugs. And now my children say, please don't make us go back to that place with all the mosquitoes. And I'm like, it was Lake Superior. Like, there aren't supposed to be. It makes the child in me just a little bit sad to know that that's my children's impression of Lake Superior. So we're going to redeem it at some point here. And, it'll be better. It'll be better.
This year might not be the year, Dan. All of the articles are just, the mosquitoes are going to get real bad here, folks. Buckle up.
Okay, and I have one other thing. So speaking of the wild out there, The Athletic had a poll of hockey names, like mascot names, and the Minnesota Wild ranked 32nd in the NHL. I think there's 32 teams in the NHL, whatever. It was the last one. Are you anti-wild as a name?
Oh, it's terrible, Dan. It's terrible. It's so bad. Have you seen their mascot? It's the stuff of nightmares. Yeah.
So I just wish, it makes me just abhor Norm Green all the more that he took those North Stars away. I know they're creeping back with the outfit, right? The jersey that we talk about so much here on the show. But maybe they could change the name. We will have to work on that, David.
It's one of those things. We have a lot of sway with the sports ownership in this town, Dan, and so it's just one more letter for us to write.
Well, we are far away from baseball here, and this is a fun series. We should get into this here.
Series recap.
Game 1, Dan. Twins win this one 3-1. Pablo Lopez on the mound. He goes 5 2/3, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 5 Ks, 2 hit by pitches. And folks, if you watch these, I think it was Jonathan India. I forget who the second one was, but you would have thought that these guys got shot. Like, both of their reactions seemed a bit over the top watching the replay. Now, granted, I don't want to get hit with the ball either, but it was like immediately it seemed like the worst injury anyone could possibly have. And then within 2 to 3 minutes, they were both like, oh, yeah, I'm fine.
We're about to begin bonding adamantium to weapon exoskeleton.
Don't see the Twins players dealing with it like that. They just take the hit and they go to first base unless it's Byron Buxton. But well, first inning here, there's already kind of a crazy play by Bader, who's playing in center on a Bobby Witt Jr. fly ball. He lost it in the sun, basically did the Smalls thing where just put his glove up there and he caught it. I just thought that he still gave up a run on anything on an RBI double to Kevin Biggio on a 1-2 count, as we must point out. So the Royals get their run early.
Yeah, so Royals are up 1-0. Bottom of the second, though, Correa's first at bat after returning from the IL. He hits a deep home run to center field. Game's tied 1-1. And then it's really quiet, Dan. It's real quiet in the middle innings. But top of the seventh, Louis Varland's on the mound. Jonathan India walks. There's a ball that's hit up the middle, and Varland does a great job. He doesn't try and field it. He doesn't try and deflect it. He just gets out of the way. And so Correa fields the ball, but he has to wait for it because it's bouncing in such a way that it might hit the second base bag. So Correa's like stuck between rock and a hard place. Do I come in on it? Do I wait on it? So he waits on it, and then he fields it, touches second base, throws to first. They get the double play. The thing is, he got beat to second base by a large margin. But Jonathan India, Dan, we've talked a lot about twin slides not being great, right? This was maybe the worst slide I've ever seen because he slid in such a way that his front leg, the leg you want to touch the bag, Dan, nowhere near second base. He didn't touch the bag until his bottom basically was on the bag, Dan.
I'll tell you the truth. I'm a little confused by your tactics.
Did he think that Correa wasn't going to get to it in time? Like, was he befuddled by the movement in front of him?
Well, I think that he maybe thought that the Correa was going to beat him by such a margin. Maybe it didn't matter. But like, if you're watching that play happen, you can see that Correa is going to be a little bit stuck in how he's going to field this ball. And he just made it easy for him, Dan.
Well, a nice play by Varland getting out of the way.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen Twins pitchers do much worse, but Louis Varland seems to have figured it out, right? He had the whole hot potato, push to first base. So maybe he's the one who can teach the rest of these guys. Now, the top of the eighth, the Twins pitcher makes another good play here. Griffin Jacks picks off Michael Garcia, who's kind of sleeping at first. A great catch and tag by France. That was obviously crucial here in this tie game.
We get into the bottom of the ninth. Twins come away with this one. We're going to talk a lot more about this later in the Minnesota moment. So let's just push to game two, which is the second walk-off winner in a row, which at this point, Dan, I have to be thinking, are the Royals feeling the same way Twins fans feel when we play the Guardians?
Well, it was actually the third walk-off in a row if you go back to the previous series, too. So,
I suppose. Yeah.
So Zebby Matthews isn't awesome. Gets into trouble giving up a walk and then 3 singles in the top of the third. So it's 2-0 Royals. And then top of the fifth, when he's out already, because he only went 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs. He did strike out 9 guys, though.
Yeah.
So the strikeouts clearly have some upside there. But the Royals get a couple more off of Justin Topa, who's come in to make it 4-0. Salvador Perez has a hit there as well. He always seems to get hits against the Twins. And so you're thinking, nah, game's over. 4-0. Yeah. Zebby's had his day. Topa's been in. We'll see the backups, the bottom of the bullpen. That's not what happened.
No, bottom of the fifth, Harrison Bader gets the Twins on the board with a solo shot. Then Castro's hit by pitch. Kersey Jr. pops out, which is basically all that man does. Yeah. But anyway.
No, he had that double down the line to win a game in a walk-off a couple weeks ago. Yep.
One time, Dan, though. Just one time is all that we get. Anyway, Vasquez singles, Larnach grounds out. So there's 2 outs, 2 on, and then thank goodness, Ty France comes to the plate, and this is where he's at his best.
After all, miss, this is France.
2 outs, strikes on the board. He just seems to really thrive in these situations. So he hits an RBI single to score Castro and Vasquez. So now it's 4-3, Dan, and we've got a game on our hands.
We do. Bottom of the sixth. Kody Clemens, the man who would be king, I think, of this team somehow. He ties the game with a deep shot to right field. A bat flip also afterwards. Yeah. It seems like he's really arrived. And so then it's 4-4 until the top of the ninth when Duran gets into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, so Witt Jr. singles, Pasquantino is hit by pitch, and then he Ks Perez and Garcia. But then he walks Canada to load the bases. And so at this point, I'm thinking, Dan, did we really come this far for this to be how it ends? But no, he gets Waters to ground out to end the inning and the threat. And then we get into the bottom of the ninth, Dan, again, which we are also going to talk about quite a bit later in the Minnesota moment. So we'll have to push to game 3, the sad game, Dan. Twins lose this one 2-1, and a wasted start by my guy Bailey Ober.
Where did all these unsupervised children come from?
Quite the shame, right? He gets to wake up in his own bed, getting piggybacked by his children. Gives him 6 2/3, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Not as many as maybe he's had lately. It does start well for the Twins right away. I mean, the bottom of the first, Jeffers doubles, and then immediately Ty France singles him in, so it's 1-0. And you would think the Twins are going to get more, but they don't have another hit for 6 innings.
It's bad, Dan. This is a boring baseball game, and actually today was the Monaco Grand Prix for F1.
Okay. On the Indy 500 day, too. This is a big day for four-wheeled races.
And this was a very boring Monaco Grand Prix. They tried to switch it up, Dan, to make it more interesting by forcing teams to have 2 pit stops. It didn't matter, Dan. It was still super boring. And this Twins game in those middle innings, sometimes I can see the correlation between F1 and baseball, because baseball is all about the exciting moments kind of between the mundane and the routine. I guess not even mundane. Like, we appreciate the routine plays, the actions that guys have to do again and again and again and again. Well, with F1, it can be very much the same. Where there's a whole bunch. Yes, there's a whole bunch of. There's a whole bunch of laps. Right. Where nothing happens, right? Like where guys are just rolling. And that's what happened in this game. Top of the third, though, Royals have runners on second and third. Correa makes this play, and I couldn't really describe it because if I told you that he like makes a great diving catch at short, you would think like it was a scorcher off the bat and he dove to his right and snagged it. That's not how it looks. Like if you go and you watch the replay, he has to sort of decide whether he's going to play the ball on a bounce or try and catch it in the air. And like at the last second, he sort of like doubles over kind of and grabs the ball before it touches the ground to record the out. A weird play.
Well, I think what he was doing was he was trying to see if he let it drop and he could get maybe a base runner leaning off a base. So he was he was thinking through it, but
oh yeah, oh no,
okay. It sounded like you were criticizing his indecision, and I just wanted to make sure that wasn't the case.
Not at all. Just that's why the play. Like I want to be clear of what the play was. Like it was still a good play that he caught it, but it wasn't like a web gem that you're going to be looking.
It wasn't a great play because he made this amazing diving catch. It was a cerebral web gem, right?
Yes,
That's what it was.
A strategic. It's one of those baseball is a thinking man's games moments, Dan.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
I want to build a championship culture.
It's all tied together in Carlos Correa.
Yes.
So a couple of the nice defensive plays in the top of the fourth. Jeffers throws out Drew Waters at first, but in the top of the seventh, the Royals do finally tie it on a Freddie Fermin RBI double. Top of the eighth, Vinny Pasquantino hits a grounder between the pitcher's mound and first. Varland can't get to this one either.
No.
But then France fields it, dives in only the only time a first baseman should, right? And he slapped the glove, and he slapped the base with the glove to get the out. But unfortunately, that was all kind of the last highlight for the Twins, really.
Yeah, top of the 10th. The Royals score their ghost runner Lofton on a Garcia single with 2 outs. Duran is then allowed to pitch to Bobby Witt Jr. The only reason I find that funny is because Bobby Witt has like a 500 batting average against Duran. Normally, I'd understand, it's the 10th inning, you got to pitch to him. You have a base open at this point. Thank goodness he got him to ground out to France. But at the same point, in that moment, you're going to have to score a run next inning. Why on earth even risk it pitching to France there?
Yeah, I agree. The Royals do just get the one at the top of the 10th. The Twins do get a couple guys on. They bring up Brooks Lee. My back! But he can't bring him in. He grounds out and actually another one that went off the mound and then went to Bobby Witt Jr., who threw him out at first. So they were a wild pitch away from tying it, but in the end, they suffer the loss, and there goes the, another short winning streak. But they still get the series win. Now, David, I was around a fire quite a bit this weekend here. But you know what I was missing?
What were you missing, Dan Johnson?
I was missing Cub Foods and their wide array and selection of foods. Because it's almost summer, David, and I've been dusting off the grill weekly now. I've been inviting family over. We've been having all of these times, and lucky for you there in Minnesota, Cub Foods is your one-stop shop for all your grocery needs. With everyday fresh products, a wide selection, you'll be in great shape to host the next grill out with all your backyard essentials. So you can grab your fresh produce, your deli meats, your party trays, your bakery, all in one stop. With over 100 locations in Minnesota, check out your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all your summertime essentials.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett! Puckett's Picks winner.
You sort of alluded to this, Dan, that Kody Clemens, is he a mirage? What is he exactly, Dan? I can't understand. What's the literary device that you would like, not unsung hero even? You know how it's always like Neo's the one, and Moana is the queen of the ocean or whatever she does. Like what is Kody Clemens in literary terms?
Yeah, so he's the guy in the whodunit that you don't think is actually the criminal, but in the end he is. Like, that's who he is.
Ogres are like onions.
Like, nobody suspects Kody Clemens, and yet there he is.
That is great, actually. I really appreciate that, Dan. That's very helpful. But Hogs gets the win with Kody Clemens for the second time in a row.
I hate that he's picking Kody Clemens and we're not, and he's getting victories out of it.
It is ridiculous. Sort of hilarious. But so Clemens had 6. Thankfully, he didn't get the bonus. France actually outscored him with 8. But then I took Larnick, who had 0. Dan, you took Castro, who had -1. And the listeners took Lewis, who had -1. -1. It's amazing when you look at these numbers that the Twins won 2 of 3. It's just crazy to me how the lack of offensive production doesn't seem to hurt them in the win-loss column right now because the pitching is so phenomenal.
No, and so the victory for Hogs gives him 7.5 on the season. You have 5. I have 4. The listeners have 2.5. David Hogs also extended his lead in the points with 68. You have 43. Listeners have 27, and I have 22. And yeah, it just seems that amongst the four of us, it's very rare that we pick two competent players, it seems. But Ty France is a hard guy to pick because he will go over for stretches, but then this series he was clutch.
Well, you mocked me
I did.
a few series ago for taking France for that reason, that I said he's so
and then
streaky.
He got
and you're like,
-3
well, that's
for
a
you,
dumb way to think about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what you told. Yes, it wasn't good. I'm not saying it paid off. I'm just saying what you're saying right now is the rationale I had that you mocked previously.
I did. Well, I can't remember who knows about these things. We should move forward here.
Beast versus bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
You can't run that far, Dan, because I see who you picked as your beast.
I took Ty France. I mean, he had a walk-off hit. He had the big hit in game 3, at least to tie the game or to take the lead early. So he was everywhere. He was doing everything big for the Twins. So I took Ty France for the clutch hits.
After all, miss, this is France.
Yeah, not a bad pick. I think truly he's the guy who is the most important to the wins for this series, certainly. And then my guy is the guy who got robbed of a win.
Where did all these unsupervised children come from?
Ober, man. It's so frustrating. His last start, Rocco decided to throw him out there knowing he was only going to throw 3 innings. And then this start, he pitches a gem, only allows 1 run, and the offense does absolutely nothing, Dan.
Yeah, 65 strikes and 89 pitches. He was just mowing them down. I mean, getting a lot of contact, obviously, with just the 3 strikeouts. He has been great. His ERA is 3.41. You can't argue with this Twins pitching staff right now. Certainly the starters or a bullpen. They're all pitching really, really well.
Okay, so you're going to have to go ahead and explain your bench again.
Okay, so every time Carson McCusker comes up, I'm waiting for big things, right? I'm waiting for his Aaron Judge announcement moment. He's 6'8", and instead we keep getting Mickey Gasper. You know, it's just like, it's my great disappointment here that this man seems to be he bears so much potential, and then he struck out in his 2 at-bats here in this series. Very disappointing.
So, okay, a couple of things. First of all, the Mickey Gasper comparison isn't great right now because Mickey is just absolutely destroying
but
AAA.
Not at the but it's the same because they destroy AAA, and then it's like their arms go to like mush when they come up here to the majors.
Their arms?
Well, their ability to swing the bat, it's like the bat turns into like a limp hot dog or something like that.
Of course. Limp hot dog. Yes, Dan. I think it's a little bit harsh because he hasn't even really been given a full game
No,
yet.
he hasn't.
He keeps getting pulled or pinched for. But sure, you keep putting that guy on
All right,
the
well,
bench.
who are you putting on your bench then?
Is it a height thing, Dan? It's weird that you love
not
Aaron
a height
Judge
thing.
so much, but you don't.
It's that and they talked about the strike zone. I think it was on the radio cast, which I didn't listen to, but they were talking about like how he ought to be so mighty, and yet he's not.
Okay, first of all, there's no chance that either Chris Atterbury, Glenn Perkins, or Dan Gladden uttered the words "ought to be so mighty."
Well, they didn't say it like that. I'm paraphrasing what I would have said if I was sitting in that chair.
Yes, much more narrative, I'm sure, in your approach and your interpretation of baseball idioms.
Would you go on?
Sure.
Who is yours here?
Yeah.
Who's yours?
I'm going to give it to Zebby, which I would argue is still harsh, but not nearly as harsh as McCusker. I say, Dan. Maybe at this point, it's time to go to Fester SWR. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Zebby's second start in a row now here where he hasn't looked to be the savior the Twins had hoped to be for that 5th starting spot. It's really hard because we talk about all this pitching depth we have, and I understand we're talking about the 5th starter, but you got to have somebody in there who can give you 5 innings.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about him in a later segment, so I think I'm going to hold my rebuttal.
Rocco's Rewind.
So game 1, Dan, top 6, he pulled Pablo at the right time. I was very happy with the way that he managed the bullpen here. But the other note that I thought was really interesting, game 1, bottom 9, he didn't pinch run for Correa after the infield hit. There's 1 out. And I'm just thinking, normally Rocco is real quick to pull the trigger here for a pinch runner. But he decided to leave Correa out there. So my question is, Dan, was this sort of like he didn't have the confidence that the Twins would finish, so he wanted Correa to still play in the field? Because at that point, he had a full bench. Nobody had been pinched for yet.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think he's not sure. He's hedging his bet, which is weird This is not how Rocco has managed late game situations before. He's doing things differently, which I guess kind of gets into mine. So it was pretty clear when I looked at the lineup and I looked at Zebby Matthews for game 2 that the Twins were ready to lose game 2 in classic Rocco fashion, right? Because you got Bailey Ober in game 3. And so you figure you give the Royals game 2, you eat some innings, and you live to have another meal and hopefully win the series. And that's just not what happened. They go down 4-0. And I think it was the Bader home run that really kind of sparked the Twins. And to get back within 4-3, I give Rocco credit for kind of flipping the switch and then really trying to win that game once they were only down a run. And I just wonder, like, if that's... Is that just faith in this bullpen that he can basically go to anybody and hold the lead now?
It is a very hybrid approach.
Yeah.
Because we talked about earlier in the season, during this streak, when we thought Rocco was really managing for his job, he couldn't take the liberty to have these games where he's like, yeah, we're going to put out a lineup that's not stellar and we're probably going to lose this one. In this moment here, Dan, this is a hybrid because he put that lineup forward, but as soon as the script gets flipped, he decides, yeah, no, we are going to try and win. I do think, Dan, the bullpen comment is where this comes down to, knowing that we have guys who are going to be able to shut down anybody. So if this game is close or if it's tie game, everything changes, because if the offense can just squeak out a run or two, the bullpen is so phenomenal at this point. You have to lean on them to win games because that's how they've won all the games so far, Dan.
Well, because they've got, 5 or 6 guys that you could argue could pitch the 7th, 8th, or 9th. So you can deal with the guys who are rested on any given day, kind of no matter what. So I aside from Duran, who's going to get the 9th, he could go to anybody, really, in the other innings.
How do you rank them currently in your mind? Because honestly, I know this is sort of, we're not talking about this in Mauer's Musings. I'm just curious. If you had to put your faith, what order do you put your faith in the bullpen guys currently? Regardless of lefty righty, just do by, this is what I think is best.
I think Griffin Jax is right back up there. In the month of May, he's only given up 2 runs in, about a dozen starts. So he's probably back to number 2, I would say. Louis Varland, Cole Sands. It's very hard to rank them. Danny Coulomb would have been up there when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Alcala and Topa, the 2 guys that he went to in game 2 here, are kind of the guys I would put at the bottom. I forget who I'm missing in there, but I mean, like, that's a pretty...
Stewart and Funderburg.
And Funderburg, Funderburg would pretty much be at the bottom now. But Brock Stewart, I would put probably in that 4-5 spot too.
I think that Varland has looked so good, Dan, and he's not given up the home runs like he was last season, which is great to see. So I have to say, between Duran, Jax, Varland, Sands, and if Coulomb comes back healthy, dude, those guys, I haven't had a faith in a bullpen like this for a long, long time.
All right, let's move forward here to 2 really fun Minnesota moments.
Minnesota moment.
Game 1, bottom 9, Dan. This Ty France walk-off. And let me set the stage. So Larnach strikes out. Correa gets an infield hit on a slow roller to third. I thought again for sure at this point that he'd pinch run for Correa, but he leaves Correa in. Ty France crushes the first pitch he sees from Ursig to deep center. My favorite part about this, first of all, France watches it, which I love. And then as he's rounding first, he gives a flex. And that guy's got some arms. I'm sorry. He looks like he is hitting the gym pretty hard, which makes the flex around first feel better than like if a Kersey Jr. were to flex coming across the line, right? Also, full disclosure here, I'm sure that either of these people could beat me up handily. This isn't like a macho contest. I'm just stating it just looks a little bit more impressive when Ty France is rounding first base. But my favorite thing about this, Dan, is Ursig's reaction. And I watched this replay so many times. I made my wife watch it like 3 or 4 times. And then an hour later, I brought it up again. And she said, are we still talking about this? Like, she was so annoyed at me. Because, folks, go watch this replay. And as soon as France makes contact with the ball, Ursig takes his glove off and just starts walking to the dugout. He doesn't even turn. He knows it's over. It's so great. And it makes me think of, was it the Braves game when Sano hit that homer to basically St. Paul? Mm-hmm. Where like the fielder just starts running in from center without turning around. Bother. Is there a better feeling, Dan, for watching the opponent than when they don't even look to see what happened? They just know it's over.
No, that is pretty magical. And that was a huge moment to get the first win of the series, against a rival in a very close AL Central. I'm going to go with the bottom of the 9th in game 2. So this was interesting too, because Rocco pinch hits Correa for Kersey Jr. here, and then Correa walks. Vasquez pops out, of course. Jeffers pinch hits for Larnach and walks. You've got runners at first and second. And then France comes to the plate. He doesn't have the heroics. He grounds out, but he does advance the runners. And then Brooks Lee comes up to bat with 2 outs, 2 on, full count, right? I mean, these are the moments you play in the backyard as a child. Hits a grounder right over second base to score Correa. And so just another walk-off. And it's got to feel good for Brooks Lee, who's actually quietly having a pretty solid sophomore season right now. And it's a good sign for him because if he can be good, if he can take that next step, he's the kind of depth player that the Twins really need to be able to make a run and kind of, get through, again, a tough Central.
Yeah, I do appreciate Brooks Lee's celebration too. Every time he gets on base now, he does this whole fishing motion and he mouths or like screams at the dugout, "I'm going fishing." So I'm not sure. I'm curious if there's like a deal where he gets to come in late if he gets a hit because he can be out on the water longer. But it seems like he's not just celebrating. It seems like he's like, there's a benefit that he's going to get for getting these hits.
Like beyond his own batting average, like something else is improving in his stock in the dugout. That's pretty funny. Well, 2 fun moments there. Let's move on to Mauer's musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
I alluded to this earlier, Dan, but this is my question for you. Who do you give the next 5th start to? Do you give it to SWR? Do you give it to Zebby? Do you give it to Festa? Do you give it to somebody else? SWR really dominated in his last start here at AAA. I just don't know what to do at this point, Dan. It's like you have to hit the hot hand at the right moment. It's sort of like the shell game, where you have all of these Twins pitchers vying for the 5th spot, and you have to figure out which one is under the shell at the right moment.
So it's interesting you say this because I think I'm going to be at the next game. So it's going to be in Seattle. I think on Friday that spot will come up again. I think it's got to be Zebby, and I point to the 9 strikeouts, right? So he's got the stuff. The Royals are a pretty good lineup right now. They're a well-disciplined, well-managed team. So I want to see Zebby one more time. I do want to see him turn that into 5 or 6 innings at some point here.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to give the guy a shot, you have to give him a fair shake of a few starts.
It says the guy who just put McCusker on his bench after like seeing 1 or 2 pitches.
But hold on, this is different than McCusker, right? This is a guy that they're committed to. McCusker is like, I guess we got to add somebody to the 40-man, and I just want him to rise to the moment, and he's not.
Yeah, I think at this point, just for the sheer egg on face moment that the Twins might face if they continually make these changes, I think you got to go with Zebby for a couple more starts just to see what he can do. And then I honestly think they have to bring up Festa as opposed to SWR, just because sending down SWR for like 1 or 2 starts just feels so funny to like bring him right back up. So I do think they got to cycle a little bit before they get back to SWR. If anything else, just to save face, even if it might not be the best decision, really.
Well, and it would be good for SWR to get his feet kind of under him, regardless, right? So I think we would be missing the fullness of the equation if we just talked about Zebby. This is also about SWR getting a reset.
Definitely. Well, what do you have for your musing, Dan?
Yeah, so it's a third of the way through the season, just about. My question for you, there's a word in here that will be important. Which Twins player will get an All-Star nod versus should get an All-Star nod?
I mean, if it's not Kody Clemens. This one is tricky from the offensive side, Dan, because I don't think it's going to be an offensive player. I think it's going to be a pitcher. I think it's likely probably Joe Ryan, I think at this point, is the likely candidate. Maybe Pablo Lopez, but Joe Ryan's stuff has played a little bit better, I think. Relievers are always tricky. Duran obviously would be a great choice. It's hard for me. If I had to pick someone from the offensive side of the ball who I said, this is your all-star, well, I'd probably say Ty France, honestly. But there's so many other good first basemen. I don't know how many guys would have to decline for them to pick up the phone and call Ty France.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think it's probably Joe Ryan, and then Johan Duran should get a nod if that's kind of how things go. But sometimes those reliever spots go to teams that maybe just have the one guy, maybe the Twins, or maybe they're going to be that one guy. I think if a position player is going to get it, I think it's going to be Byron Buxton if he comes back and is able to play as well as he was playing before, because I think he was playing at an all-star level. But it would be hard to see the Twins getting more than 2 right now because that's how baseball works. They're not hosting, right? So it's very rare a team gets more than 2. But I thought it was an interesting idea because I don't think that we would have necessarily picked those guys heading into the season. Maybe Duran, but there were so many question marks with how he pitched at the end of last season.
Yeah, I think Buxton is a good pick. I guess I was only looking at the active roster, to be fair. I think that Buxton is a great choice, obviously. Hopefully he comes back this series or the next and is healthy. But with that, Dan, let's go ahead and grade the series.
Series grades.
So I gave him a B-, Dan. It was good. You took 2 of 3. It was just a little frustrating. Again, so much of my grading when they lose games, it matters so much more how they lost the game.
Mm-hmm.
And game 3, you had great pitching. You should have been able to bring a run or 2 across throughout the game to come away with this one. And that's really what hurts the grade more than anything, is that the lack of offensive production throughout the series, the Twins got kind of lucky that it didn't bite them more than once.
Yeah, I think they won the series 9-7 or something like that. So I think to win 2 out of 3, I think feels pretty good. With my rubric here, so the momentum, I think it's still a +1 on the pendulum, -2-2. I mean, like, you did win a series at home against your rivals. Decision making, I thought, was really good overall. I think managing for the situations that they had. I think the levers that Rocco pulled, while we can question whether he should have pulled them or not, generally worked out. For the Stars, Correa had that big home run, which was important in game 1. Pablo pitched really well. I'm going to give him a +1 there. The mids, I think Kody Clemens must count as a mid. I think Ty France counts as a mid. Just think he gets some pretty good games out of them. That's a +1. And the youth, Zebby wasn't great. Brooks Lee, I think, was good. And so but McCusker obviously was nothing for this poor outfield that needs him so badly. Deshaun Kersey also is not playing well, and I wonder if he's not going to have a roster spot much longer either. So that's a 0. So if you convert that back, it's a 4 + 5 + 4 + 4 + 3, which is 20 out of 25 multiplied by 4, and that's 80 out of 100, which is a B-.
You took a lot more effort to get to a B- than I did.
I did. We ended up in the same spot. But don't you feel better about your grade now, knowing that my rubric demonstrated that that's what it was too?
I arguably feel worse. Okay. But when I'm feeling bad, Dan, one thing that can always brighten me up is a shower. And you know what makes those showers even better is Duke Cannon products here. Duke Cannon makes high quality grooming products for hardworking men, Minnesota-based and with an all-new look. Their clean new packaging featuring the Big D is unmistakable on the shelves. Whether you go for a brick of soap, thick body wash, deodorant, hair care, beard care, or cologne, Duke Cannon will have you smelling your best. Look for the Big D at Target, Walmart, Amazon, or DukeCannon.com. Once you try it, you'll be hooked. Work harder, smell better, Duke Cannon.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag. Herbie's headlines.
Ronald Acuna Jr., Dan, returns for the Braves, who are almost back to 500, and he homers on the first pitch that he sees. Then he homers again in the next game. I don't think you can count the Braves out, especially now that he's returned. Yeah, they had a real rough start to the season, except for when they played the Twins at their possibly lowest moment as for the Twins. But my goodness, Dan, having a guy like that back in baseball is just good for baseball.
It is good for baseball. And it's, as much as I don't love to see the Braves playing well, man, they're a good franchise. They've been really, really good over the years here too. So it just shows you that it's a long season, as the Twins have shown too, right? You can overcome a bad start there. Also, you have a note in here, O'Neal Cruz hit the hardest ball of the StatCast era. This feels almost impossible. He hit a home run that was 432 feet with an exit velocity of 122.9. Like, they have sent rockets to space at lower speeds than O'Neal Cruz hit that ball.
Pretty impressive. You should watch the whole highlight if you haven't seen it, because the ball, it's noticeable. It's noticeable how fast that is off the bat.
And then one other note, Tariq Skubal, there was his first complete game, actually, 13 strikeouts. He threw, at the end of the game, 102.6 mile an hour fastball to end that thing. How do you have that much gas in the tank at the end of a baseball game?
Fastest pitch of his career also.
It's
a
like
lot
he just,
of high numbers.
Man, just reared back and just threw it with it. That is an exclamation point at the end of a baseball game.
It is. And we should note that's a good sort of jumping off point here to talk about the Tigers. The Twins and the Guardians are now only 4 games back from the Tigers, as Cleveland did a little bit of damage to him here in their series against them. The Royals are 5 games back, and then the baseball-playing Chicago White Sox are 16 and a half back, Dan.
You know what's cool, though, about this, actually, and with the more balanced schedule where you only see your division foes 13 times, you're not going to necessarily beat up on each other in the degree that you would otherwise. This could, I wouldn't think that 4 teams are going to stay in this. I think one horse is going to fall back, but I think we could see a central race where 3 teams are vying for the division title going forward. That's really exciting.
Could be a fun way to watch the season come to an end, Dan. Those magic number watching folks are going to be excited, I think, to the very end.
All right, let's go on here to Puckett's Picks.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's Picks.
So I actually had to look in the bylaws, Dan, because Hogs was asking if he could take Buxton or if he could wait to take Buxton. And I've looked, and historically what we do is you can choose a player who has not yet been designated to the IL. However, if that happens, you get to change your pick to pick someone who's healthy on the roster. What Hogs is doing is picking a guy who's on the IL who has not yet been cleared to come off the IL. So Hogs will still go with Buxton as his pick. However, if it comes out that Buxton is not going to be activated for the series, he still has to go with Buxton.
He could win it with 0 points, though. We've seen this happen before. Listeners are going to start us off by taking Jeffers for the Rays series. I think I was next then. I'm going to take Royce Lewis. That leaves you next.
Yeah, I'm going to take Carlos Correa. I think it's time. It's time for my guy to build that championship culture, Dan, and to put me back in the winning column in Puckett's picks.
I want to build a championship culture.
And then Hogs is, of course, taking Byron Buxton. He's going to be nearby his home in Georgia, right? So down in Tampa, where the Rays, if we need to remind people, so they're not playing at their stadium, at the Trop. They're playing outside at the Yankees AAA facility. And I was just looking at the weather. A couple things. It's not going to surprise people. It's going to be hot. Highs of 91 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, with chances of rain on Monday and Tuesday. Again, no surprise for these Twins who have been rained out a whole lot this year.
Well, it'd be great for Chris Paddock, though. I mean, if he's pitching in this warm weather,
I was thinking of
that's when he does it. And we should note also Matt Wallner might be returning from a rehab stint as well. So you might have Wallner and Buxton back. And Dan, if those two guys come back, that would be the first time all season you've had sort of what you would have projected your opening day roster to be at the beginning of the season.
Last thing too, this is a series that was going to be a home series, but then they swapped it with the other Rays series just because of the scheduling thing we just talked about. So they're on the road now, Tampa and then Seattle, which is hilarious to me. They at least have a day off on Thursday to travel, and then down to play the Athletics in Sacramento. So again, dream road trip. This would be kind of an interesting one because you're going to get to see AAA stadium, really beautiful stadium in Seattle, AAA stadium in Sacramento. So if anybody's out there doing this trip, we would love to hear from you because I'd love to hear how you did this and what this trip was like.
I also appreciated Rocco was quoted. They asked what the team does on long flights, and he basically said, like, talk trash, play cards, and sleep, and that's all. And so then they asked what he does, Dan, and what Rocco does. In true strategic baseball managerial thinking, he rests and he plays some chess.
I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
Rocco, if you're listening, I love chess. I play a lot of chess. Please find me on chess.com. I would love to know that I was playing chess with Rocco Baldelli as he's flying from Tampa to Seattle, Dan. Dream come true over here.
You should be looking up his handle, just guessing randomly what it might be.
Oh my goodness. What would it be?
It's probably really simple, like Rocco Baldelli 81, right? Because he was born in 1981.
You kind of hope it's like something just totally out of character, like, Rocco Goat or something, like just something that like, oh man. Okay. Well, with that, Dan, it's so good that the Twins are winning series. We're talking about a baseball team that matters, that is near the top of the standings, and we get to do it again, Dan, on Wednesday. But with that, I'll ask you to send us out.
Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win. You can find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages as well. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platforms so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can always find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.